Today we're going to be looking at iroiro in the color turquoise. I'm not sure if this is a new brand as a whole, but I did get it at Sally's and it seems to be new at Sally's. This comes in 4 ounces, which is equivalent to the smaller bottle for Arctic Fox. I think part of the brand is that they advertise it's a little bit healthier for the hair. It says here that it's made with coconut oil and quinoa protein. Did I say that right? I hope I did. On the back, it says there's no peroxides, no ammonia, no alcohol, no PPD, and no synthetic fragrance. So I'm curious to what it smells like. I have these listed 1 through 13. That's not supposed to be synonymous with hair levels, if that's not obvious already. Number 1 is green, 2 is like a little bit more cool tone purple, 3 is like an orangey red, 4 is more of a natural red, 5 is black, and then from 5 to 12 we have roughly a range of hair levels, 12 being platinum blonde and 13 being a toned version of number 12. So what I like to do is I'll take the dye directly from the container, I'll put it at the top of each swatch, and then in the center and the ends I dilute the dye, but I'll let you know the measurements as I go for that. So far the only other dye that I've done that's kind of turquoisey is Atomic Turquoise from Manic, so I will be comparing those as we go. As far as I can tell, there's not much of a smell. I put hand sanitizer on like a few seconds ago, so I'm not sure if I'm smelling that or the dye, but from what I can smell, it is like a nice, more pleasant smell. Since the dye doesn't seem to be too dark, I think for the center I'm going to do equal parts, so it's 1/4 of a teaspoon of dye and 1/4 of a teaspoon of diluter. As far as consistency goes, this dye is a tad bit thicker than the Arctic Fox dyes, but it's not quite as thick as Ion. Now the only thing concerning me is that on 12 and 13 maybe even 11. It kind of looks like the spot that I first applied it onto the swatch is more pigmented, like right here and over here, and more towards the top on this one, and then it kind of lightens up around the sides. I don't really know what to think about that. Obviously, it could be due to how I applied it. I think of myself as being like you guys, and I would assume that if it's happening to me, it would probably happen to some of you too. Maybe it won't affect the swatches when they're done, I don't know, but just wanted to throw that out there. I'm gonna let these sit for an hour. I'm gonna rinse them out, and then when they're dry, we can come back and do some comparisons. Though I think this would technically qualify as a dark hair dye, I don't know if I should qualify it as a dark hair dye, mostly because these look blue, but as the swatch gets darker, it looks green. And for other dyes that I consider dark hair dyes, the tone usually stays the same. So like a purple dye, even though it might not look the same type of purple on blonde hair, it'll still look like a shade of purple on the darker hair. You can see it on number 6. It's pretty dark. It almost looks like a foresty green. So I guess if you wanted a foresty green, that's probably not bad. Number 5, I don't really see anything as usual. Number 2 is interesting. So down here you can kind of see it's still like a purple, but on the top it definitely looks more like a blue. I'm blanking on the kind of blue, but it's like a royal blue maybe. Is that what I'm thinking of? Number 3 definitely absorbed more like green tones, whereas number 4, you can see a tiny bit of blue in that in comparison, but I would still say it's like a green color. Because of the blonde underneath for the diluted section, it does start to look a little bit green. This one doesn't really look green until you get into this area. Toning it definitely does help to take away that greenness, but it just kind of depends on what you like. Okay, so I'm going to compare these to Manic Atomic Turquoise. This was before I started numbering my swatches, but this swatch is comparable to number 13, 12, and 11. I think the 12 and 13 ones look fine, but I would say that the Iro actually dyed a little bit better on the top for number 11. This is comparable to number 10, which is interesting. I think they look about the same. This is comparable to number 9, 8, and 7. The 9 and 8 look pretty much the same as the Manic. Whoop. I think the 7 does as well. Shit. I was looking through my swatches and I actually also did Iron Jade, which looks similar. This would be comparable to number 13, 12, and 11. I think the undertones are similar, but I think Jade is slightly darker. And again, it seems like Iro did a better job dyeing number 11. This is comparable to number 10, 9, and 8. The Jade actually seems to be holding the blue a little bit better in the darker swatches. It looks slightly less green in my opinion, especially number 8. But it's only slightly. Now that we've seen the comparisons and everything next to each other, let's get into the close-ups. If you are curious about my dye schedule, I do have that linked down below. It can change depending on requests and my inventory. If you're interested in helping support my channel, I do have my Patreon link below as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped, and I hope to see you in my next video.